Good afternoon. Welcome to another edition of Between Two T-Balls. I'm your host, Jeff Schogol, and we're coming to you from sunny Baghdad. My guest today is General Mike Ecker, and he is the Commanding General of Operation Inherent Resolve. General, thank you so much for talking to me today. My producer tells me you bear an uncanny resemblance to Major General J.B. Vowell.
So uncanny that I am J.B. Vowell.
We can always fix it in post.
It's good to see you, Jeff, and good to see you with the very safe approach to life here in Baghdad with your Road Guard vest. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And speaking of safety, I noticed you're not wearing a safety belt. Is safety just not really that important anymore?
Safety is important to everybody, Jeff.
Well, good to know. I've told you require troops to be in a kung fu stance at all time. Does this involve sweeping the leg?
I say that because I want them to be ready, not complacent. It's a serious environment that we're in. So I use that kung fu stance sort of discussion just to make sure people are ready.
So they should also be ready to just break the wrist and walk away if needed. Is one of the enduring lessons of the war on terrorism that freedom runs on ripet?
Yes.
The fuel of freedom, maybe?
If you would like to say so.
I've also heard that you're an avid cyclist.
We all have hobbies, Jeff. Road cycling's mine, but put that aside for our mission here in Iraq right now.
Now, morale is a very important issue. How important would you say Taco Tuesday is to the de-ISIS mission? That's the whole enchilada, as if it were.
Hey, good way to say that.
See that? A good way to say it. Now, I understand the war against ISIS is a game of inches. There are 24 other nations that are part of Operation Inherent Resolve. Do you ever have to explain to them how many centimeters are in an inch?
We use metric systems quite often in the military. Very common language. We don't use stones. We don't use pounds. We use metric tons and the like.
So we are fathoms from victory?
I could fathom victory. Let's put it that way.
Good. Here's a softball question. Really easy. Who are you voting for in November?
I think we're all voting for America, Jeff.
That's a good answer.
Okay.
On a more serious note, you've deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. I was wondering, did you learn any lessons from your first platoon sergeant that served you well in combat?
A little bit, yeah. So paying attention to detail, helping your teammate out, being part and sharing the risk with your men and women, it matters. You can't phone it in close combat. So yeah, my platoon sergeant and the NCOs around me, like most lieutenants, shaped and formed a little bit of who I am today, and understanding those kind of very simple things that leadership at the tactical edge requires you to be there, be present, be engaged, and share the risk. That has always stuck with me.
All right. The United States fought in Iraq from 2003 to 2011. Then it returned shortly thereafter for the war against ISIS, which is now in Iraq and Syria. Where are we in this movie right now?
Good question. So 10 years on our de-ISIS mission here in Iraq and Syria, we're in a good spot. ISIS is not really at the place they were in 2017, 2016, where they had taken Mosul, they had taken large territory, and they're pushing back Iraq's defenses pretty hard until we came in to assist them on the ground in the air, roll that back. They're not capable of doing that right now. They are capable of doing small attacks, small ambushes in both countries, and we see that, and we're on that right now, that de-ISIS mission. So we're in a good spot. Not done, much better because of all the great work that went before us. It's our job this time in the movie to take it to the final act and get the right credits so there's no sequel.
Speaking of movies, if I were to put Iran in the Star Wars universe, would they be the Empire or the Phantom Menace? That was actually a trick question because Emperor Palpatine was the Phantom Menace. You grew up in the Federal Republic of Germany. That was at the height of containment. Can that kind of strategy work with Iran?
I won't speak to too much on policy. I would say you're talking about my childhood in West Germany, where we were facing off against the Soviet Union and trying to contain their continued movement to the West, where they had taken over the Eastern European countries post World War II, all but a name, with the Warsaw Pact. I think Iran can be led through, managed, negotiated. I think our foreign policy experts and professionals have to work that. From the military perspective, we just have to be ready to prevent and to deter, assure our allies with our presence, be able to prevail and win if we have to have conflict with or combat with anybody. And that would include Iran. Again, that's not what we're doing here. I'm focused on ISIS. We want them to go away and be a footnote to history, that cult that they are. But Iran is a serious regional to strategic player, and we have to treat that seriously in the military.
I understand Iran is not your mission. You do, unfortunately, have to deal with the Iranian-backed militias.
Yeah.
How much command and control does the IRGC exert on these groups that have been attacking U.S. troops since October?
I would say a great degree of control.
Now, I will never ask you for intelligence, but after the Tower 22 attack, did you get any indications that Iran had told its proxies it had gone a step too far?
I can't speak about that directly. I just know that what I can say is the Iranian-aligned militia groups had been attacking us in a strategy to try to cause casualties in the hopes that that would be enough to cause us to say, enough's enough, we're going to withdraw our coalition presence out of Iraq and Syria. That was the strategy being played. It still is there. And the other one I think Iran wants to support is this negotiations that we're doing with the U.S. government, the coalition, and Iraqi government about our timeline for how long the coalition does stay. Those are ongoing.
Also, within the limits of OPSEC, can you talk about any lessons learned that OIR implemented after the Tower 22 attack?
Our lessons were we need to make sure everybody has increased force protection, unique capabilities to stop these one-way attack UAS systems. So we leveled the field with force protection. We dug a lot more earth. We poured a lot more concrete and went back to schooling ourselves.
One of the things that I was deeply moved by was the pictures of the fallen in OIR headquarters, along with the ring of dog tags of all the fallen service members. And I'm hoping you can comment on the significance of these particular monuments.
Yeah, very significant to us. It's our duty and obligation to remember those who've fallen in service of their nation and their mission. So it's not just U.S. service personnel. We have coalition members from different countries who've been killed in action here in Iraq and Syria in the last 10 years. And so if you walk in the front door there, that's the first thing you see is the memorial wall of pictures. And you go around the corner, we have the dog tags from everybody. It's very important because we all share this risk here, and it's real.
I understand that ISIS is much weaker than its height when it controlled a territory roughly the size of Jordan. But can it ultimately and forever be defeated as long as Syria remains a failed state?
Yeah, great question. The root causes of instability that gave birth to ISIS are still there. So you still have the Bashar al-Assad civil war, which I would argue is kind of won once Russia came in to be the security guarantor for Syria, and the Arab League has all but invited him fully back in economic and diplomatic efforts with Syria. But he has left aside those who are still were fighting him. There's economic challenges in the Sunni areas, quite frankly. Those instability challenges are there: lack of education, lack of opportunity, lack of jobs. And that extremism is still fomenting out in the deserts and in the middle Euphrates River Valley and the Sunni tribes. So yeah, it's not done. From the military instrument, we could do the things that disrupt, prevent, destroy capabilities, neutralize. But I can't address those things. We still have Al-Qaeda across the globe. You still have other extremists across the globe because those root causes of instability are still resident in those countries or lands where they're springing forth. Don't have a better answer to that. But what we are doing is keeping the suppression and their inability to mass again is very important. And then leaving partner forces better able to deal with that so we don't have to in perpetuity.
You mentioned Russia became Syria's guarantor. The Russian forces have also harassed U.S. troops, both in the air and on the ground at the time. Are they still upset over the outcome of Rocky IV?
They got to get over it.
It was the end of Cold War and a victory for democracy. As a Philadelphia fan, I can say that without hyperbole. And my final question, I've often encountered veterans from the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan who have questioned whether their services and their sacrifices were worthwhile. I was wondering, what do you tell those veterans if they ask you, was it worth it?
It's a very hard situation for all of us. I would tell people that when we left in 2011, the sacrifices of the soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines didn't fail. The Iraq leadership and military failed. In Afghanistan, we did not fail. They did everything we asked them to do, and those sacrifices were worth it, but the Afghans failed to coalesce with the gifts of those sacrifices we gave them. Those are hard conversations to have. And soldiers don't fight for me, they fight for each other. And the veterans I talk to, they still remember their friends, still remember the friends who aren't here with us anymore, and they remember those as good days. There's no bond like combat. There's no bond like shared privation and suffering. When you're young and you're given a mission to accomplish, it's our duty as leaders to put them in the right mission with the right resources for the right reasons. And I'll be honest and say I don't know if we've done that in every case across the board. So those are very hard conversations about the sacrifice and the reasons why.
Well, General, thank you so much for sharing your insight with me.
Absolutely.
And that's our episode of Between Two T-Walls.